Hi everyone, my name is Celia Hamilton. I'm the Strategic Planning Manager for Social Biz User Group. Thanks for listening to this interview. Today I'm talking to Sharon Bellamy, co-founder and technical director of CubeSoft Consulting. Sharon is a specialist in the IBM Collaboration Solution Stack, specializing in WebSphere Application Server, Connections, WebSphere Commerce, WebSphere Portal, and SeamTime. She's a longtime IBM champion for the IBM Collaboration Solutions. She's also a passionate Star Wars and Boba Fett fan, as I found out this year at Connect. Sharon, how are you? Thanks for joining me.
I'm very good, thanks. Nice to be here.
So at Connect in January, you presented a session called Practical Solutions for Connections Administrators, Tips and Scripts for Your Daily Business. What's your favorite tip or script from that session?
That was quite a difficult one to pick because there's so many awesome tips and scripts that we came across. Although I present the session with Christoph Stotner, and he does write a majority of the scripts, we have, I'd say they're community-based scripts. So we've got Klaus Build, who writes scripts, and a couple of other guys that have started to also write scripts, and so we're adding them as we go along. But I would say one of the best tips, which is my tip actually, surprisingly enough, is the mod deflate piece, which I use. It's a web server module which you can add to Connections, which basically squishes down, zips up, and mashes all the large files that get dumped on your desktop when you go to a Connections instance. So there's all sorts of JavaScript and other bits and pieces in the background that the browser has to load every time you hit a Connections page, because obviously it's a very complex piece of kit. And it actually speeds the load of time of the pages up by up to 80%, and it's just a couple of lines of script that you put in your IBM Connections HTTP config. So I use that on every instance that I install now, and it's made a lot of customers very happy.
Yeah, I should think so. I might borrow that for our own website.
Yep, it's a standard Apache module that comes shipped when you install a standard Apache web server and the IBM HTTP server, and how to do it is on my blog and in the presentation, and on a bunch of other websites now that we've done. And I'd probably say that the other script that I use all the time is the script that Tim Clark wrote for starting and stopping your Connections instances on Linux, which allows you to run a very short command and will start and stop however many WebSphere servers you have in your Connections instance instead of having to do them all separately.
Great.
So that does save a lot of time.
Yeah, those are two great scripts. And then so naturally, as a Connections admin, you work with WebSphere Application Server, which can really be intimidating to a Notes admin. WAS is so huge. But to stay up to date with Connections and SameTime, Notes admins are going to have to learn parts of WAS at some point. What's the best starting point for a Notes admin to jump into WAS, and are there any resources to get them started?
Oh, there's a bunch of things. Now, Gabs and Paul Mooney's Connections 101, which isn't as up to date as they'd like it to be, but that is probably the best place to go if you've never touched WebSphere before, if you're a Domino admin or an admin of any other system and you've never seen WebSphere. That is probably the best place that will explain how the different bits of WebSphere hang together and which bits you need to know and which bits you don't. If you go to the WebSphere Info Center or the WebSphere Wiki or the knowledge base or whatever current iteration of documentation that IBM are telling us to go to this week, it could probably scare the pants off you, because I've been working with WebSphere for nearly 13 years, and I learn something new about it probably every day still.
Right.
So it can be quite intimidating. When you get your head around it, it's actually pretty straightforward, and not as complicated as it sounds on the thing. But then I think Domino's quite complicated because I don't really know that much about it. So I'd say check out the Connections 101 site, connections101.net. There's also a really good bunch of videos on the IBM Education Center, and I can't remember the link for it off the top of my head, but I will find it so you can add it.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll throw that in.
To the links. But there's some really good, I don't want to say dummy guides or Muppet guides or idiot guides, because that's not, they're just very straightforward and explain to you in small, easily digestible chunks which bits are important and which bits you don't really need to know.
I ask this of all the champions I talk to who deal with connections. What's the key to keeping your users engaged? How do you get momentum started if usage has dropped off recently for your connections install?
I would say up-to-date and relevant content. Pretty much all the connections installations that I look after, all the successful ones, have got a core group of users that use it constantly and always make sure that there's up-to-date information and things going on, whether it be business-related or off-topics, sort of like even a lot of companies use it for staff days out and planning staff events as opposed to business events. So I would say having a bunch of users that are interested and want to use the system, but it's only as good as the data that's on there. It's no good if you haven't got any up-to-date information and data on there.
Yeah, sure. My husband, where he works, they've rolled it out, and he really likes it, but no one else is really using it, so he's sort of lost as to whether he should also be using it. So, yeah, that's an excellent point.
One of the biggest tips that we always give for rolling out and for starting live is we quite often put in a test system before we go live, and we get the key users that are going to use the system once it has gone live to start putting the data that they're going to do into the dev system and take it over, because there's nothing worse than rolling out a lovely shiny new system that's awesome and brilliant and can help you in your daily work if there's absolutely nothing in it.
Right, yep, you're 100% correct. So. Well, great. Those are the questions I have for you. Thanks for taking the time to answer them.
You are more than welcome. Oh, and can I just plug our new website that Christoph has very kindly whipped up for us, which is an extension of our session that we did at Connect and will be an ongoing thing. We've now created scripting101.org, which is the documentation and most up-to-date information on all the scripts that the community have put together.
Excellent. That will be an excellent resource, and I'll link to that, too, in the show notes here.
Fantastic.
And thanks to our listeners. Don't forget to check out socialbizug.org. It's a user group community built entirely on Connections, Domino, and XPages technologies, and is built for IBM Notes and Domino administrators and developers. Membership's completely free, so sign up today. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SocialBizUserGroup.